Well, meantime, across in the US, a top Obama administration official says that Washington's considering arming Ukrainian government forces. A big development if that happened. Live to our correspondent in DC, Gani Chichikan's there. Gani, this news has come through this afternoon. We could be looking at the possibility of American guns ending up in the hands of Ukraine, Kiev loyalists, yeah?
Kevin, we could. Ukrainian authorities made it clear that they want to treat the protesters in the east as terrorists for doing what they themselves were doing 2 months ago, taking over government buildings, etc. And the U.S. has Kiev's back in this crackdown. John Kerry's advisor said the U.S. is considering arming Ukrainians. Last week, the CIA director traveled to Kiev for consultations with the authorities there. The U.S. justifies this kind of involvement by accusing Moscow of instigating the protests in the east of Ukraine. Russia says, yes, these people are pro-Russian. Yes, they speak Russian, but it doesn't mean that Moscow is pulling the strings. They say the division within Ukraine had been there long before these events, and those who carried out the coup in Kiev most certainly knew how the East would react. It's clear that the U.S. wants to help Kiev quell this protest, but what is not clear is whether Washington is really taking the effort in advising Kiev to take into consideration the will of those in the eastern part of Ukraine who want greater autonomy, who are very unhappy about the fact that they had no say in what happened in Kiev 2 months ago. We don't know exactly what kind of arms the U.S. is considering to provide to be used against these people, but it's last week when a group of senators at a hearing with Secretary Kerry, a group of senators including John McCain, were pushing for arming Ukrainians. To many, it sounded crazy because of the destabilizing effect that it would have on the situation and because of how little it would contribute to finding a diplomatic way out of the crisis. But now we hear that the administration is actually considering it.
OK, for now, RT's Gani Chichikan, thank you for that. Let's get some thoughts now from Nebojsa Malic. She's a foreign affairs expert and historian joining us live on the line. Hi there, Nebojsa. Thanks for being with us. Not quite sure if you heard our correspondent there from DC, but how serious do you think the Obama administration may be here in saying that they would arm the Ukrainians loyal to Kiev? And how dangerous a situation would that be?
Well, the situation is extremely dangerous. I think sending arms to Ukraine at this point is pouring gasoline onto the fire. I honestly almost can't believe that they're contemplating this. But then again, if John McCain is involved, that's that giveaway that they are serious. I wouldn't be slightest bit surprised that the people who actually organized this entire coup and who sponsored this current regime in Kiev would not at all hesitate to send weapons and have this coup government try to repress the people of Ukraine who don't agree with them. These are people who have absolutely no standards whatsoever. And
as you see it, who are these people that you think have set up this coup? You're intimating there.
Well, we have documentary evidence of Undersecretary Nuland saying, okay, we should put this guy in charge, we should put that person in charge. We have her passing out biscuits. We have McCain visiting the Maidan. Obviously, people from the United States government are behind the regime in Kiev.
And there is these talks coming up, of course, in Geneva, probably at the end of the week, towards the end of the week. How helpful is this statement now coming from the Obama administration talking about arming these people ahead of these talks?
It's not helpful at all by any stretch of imagination. It threatens to torpedo the entire effort. If it's a bluff, it's a really bad bluff. It's an incredibly poor taste. It is hypocritical, anti-diplomatic, you name it. It's just, there's no way in which this can possibly be helpful. United States providing weapons to a coup government to repress its own people. I don't really understand how anybody could have thought this was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, when the protesters were taking over government buildings in Kiev, everyone in the West said, oh, great. When the same thing is happening in the East, it's being completely decried. Why the difference? What's the difference here?
Well, it's not necessarily right. Well, it's not necessarily the same thing. See, the protesters in the East are peaceful and they're not killing people. The coup in Kiev was very violent and there were people who were getting killed. So when people who are getting killed but are supported, people who are killing people but are supported by the West do this, it's fine, it's democracy, it's peaceful. But when people who actually engage in democracy and express their will out on the street do this peacefully without casualties, then that's aggression and that's intolerable. And the U.S. and the West were telling President Yanukovych, do not by any means use force to disperse these demonstrations. Don't fight them. We will react harshly if you do. And look what happened. He basically got overthrown. And now they're back in the coup government that's saying we will use force to disperse these people and assert authority of the state. So they're quite literally helping an illegitimate government repress its own people. Again, I can't see how this could be.
Why is Washington so apparently deeply involved here? What's it got to gain?
Because the gain is ultimately to destabilize and disrupt Russia. I think Ukraine is a pawn in the great game on the grand chessboard that the American foreign policy strategists have been developing for decades, and this is not a new development. This is part of a very old plan.
Okay, Nebojsa, thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for being with us, Nebojsa Malic, the historian and foreign affairs expert. Thank you.